So I'm going to share how Diffit supports the station rotation model in an English classroom. The lesson plan is for 10 days and it is for a 45-minute classroom. So for the first week, I chose activities from Diffit that kind of get the students thinking about the Roaring Twenties and allowing them to see what that looked like. So the first one was a social media style summary interactive slide deck. And there they were able to begin to learn some new vocab as they are looking at an image from the 1920s. On day two, they did another image analysis, and this one is a little bit different coming from Diffit, but again, they're able to see different images from the 1920s. For day three, I had selected the Say Mean Matter activity, and students were given the quotes that I wanted them to look at. So on day three, we completed number one and two together as a class. And then for day four, students were given again the quotes that I wanted them to select, and they completed three and four on their own. So for this week, the whole group lesson was on Monday, and this is where they read the essay, These Wild Young People from Study Sync. They were provided short answer questions from Diffit, so that was the activity on Monday. There was no warm up, they were just given the class time to read and answer questions. For the rotations, I do one rotation a day because my classes are just not long enough to typically run two. So the first one was a teacher led station, and I used these Wild Young People small group interactive slides, which are nice whenever you're working on small group discussions, even with it being a teacher led. This way I have questions that I want to ask them and they are able to generate those answers and prepare, and then we can all discuss it as a small group, and they need to record responses from other students. Station two or rotation two, they were completing an online activity. Those students were given a video, and I wanted them to look at the causes and effects of the Roaring Twenties. So I paired that with the Diffit activity um, for the cause and effect. Rotation number three, they were working on their vocabulary activity. So they were given the choice board, and rotation four, they were independent practice. So here they were reading about modernism and disillusionment in the 1920s. This was generated through Diffit, and they completed the five W's. So rather than just taking one workbook and just giving it to them, I will generate multiple resources. So it could be a reading, or it could be a reading that I have Diffit create, and then I pull those apart and I use them for specific purposes within the classroom. So I don't just give them the workbook. I don't just take one workbook and break it down. I pick and choose what I want the students to be working on. So for week two, we were moving into ethos, pathos, and logos. So I used the vocabulary image package, and each day they were given, so their warm up for day one was pathos, day two was logos, and day three was ethos. And then on the fourth day, this is where they had just a quick multiple choice question. I think there was like maybe four of them there, and they completed those multiple choice just to give me some feedback on their understanding. We didn't have warm ups for every day this week just because we had testing, so it just didn't fit into my schedule. But if I needed a fifth day worth of warm ups, I could have easily pulled something from Diffit. So we also worked a little bit different this week, and I call it a playlist. Again, we had testing in the middle of the week. You guys understand how that just screws up your whole schedule. So the students were given the options for their rotations that week. So one group or whoever, it wasn't really in groups, it was individual. They could work on the YouTube activity for ethos, pathos, and logos, and they had a Google form quiz there. They also had the vocab choice board. This was a second group of words, and I put the stipulation on they could not choose the same activity that they had the week before, so they needed to choose something else. And then there were several students who had kind of missed the mark on what I wanted them for the cause and effect assignment. So they were going back in and editing and revising those responses and taking a look at that video again and some of the other notes that I had provided earlier on as well. And then days 3 through 5 this week, they had another choice board assignment that they were looking at or choosing from. So that's how I use the station rotations for this week. But typically, I'll have a different rotation all week long. So one day is whole group, and then 4 days out of the week is typically a rotation. But for this week, because of testing, it was a little bit different. But the big thing that I just wanted to show was how I'm able to pick and choose what I use from Diffit, and I can use it in so many different ways. It's not just a um, workbook that I give to them and that they work out of. I pull specifically what I want the students to be working on, and I will generate multiple different activities. So while this is a 2 week plan, we'll be using rotations again after they finish their choice board activity. But again, the big point here is that I can just do so many different things with Diffit to really dig into different skills and really analyze different texts.